Vikings were here more than 4,000 years ago. Vikings were in the Americas exactly 1,000 years ago. So today that's the title of Daily English Reading. It's October 25th, 2021. It's my payday today. It's Monday. Every 25th is my payday, so I'm super excited about that. No bonus, but I was strapped for cash because I heavily invested in the stocks, and they are not doing well. So this is interesting. China claims that their general, Mr. Zhang, was there long before the Columbus stepped on the America. And this one, Vikings were in America exactly 1,000 years ago. That's amazing. They were on the Newfoundland, I think. Let's just check it out. I've never read this article before. By Ashley Strickland, CNN, updated 1:43 p.m. EDT, Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. CNN. The Vikings used their longships to cross the Atlantic Ocean and settled in Canada as early as 1021, according to a new study providing the first exact date of Europeans in the Americas. The study examined wooden artifacts from a previously updated Viking settlement in Newfoundland, which provide the earliest known record of humans crossing the Atlantic to reach the Americas. The site, known as Luanzhou Meadows, is located on Newfoundland's northern peninsula. The researchers landed on the definitive date thanks to two unlikely sources: chopped wood and a solar storm that occurred more than 1,000 years ago. When the Vikings reached Luanzhou Meadows, they chopped down trees using metal blades which weren't produced by the indigenous population living in the area at the time. The wooden pieces left behind at the settlement came from 3 different trees. Thus, this reconstructed Viking Age building sits adjacent to the site of Luanzhou Meadows. That's a hobbit house, like a shed. Not bad for the Vikings at the time, I think. Within those pieces were 3 rings, including a clear marker for the year 993. The year before, scientists know that a massive solar storm occurred, releasing a stream of cosmic rays or highly energetic particles from the sun at nearly the speed of light. Archaeologists in Norway find rare Viking ship burial using only radar. This left behind a noticeable and distinct signature in the 3 rings for the year 993. The distinct uplift in radiocarbon production that occurred between 992 and 993 AD has been detected in 3 ring archives from all over the world, said Michael D., lead study author and associate professor of isotope chronology at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. All 3 wooden objects show the same signal from the solar storm, exactly 29 growth rings before meeting the bark's edge. Finding the signal from the solar storm 29 growth rings in from the bark allowed us to conclude that the cutting activity took place in the year 2021 AD, said Margaret Quitten's study co-author and postdoctoral researcher at the University of Groningen. A study including these findings published Wednesday in the journal Nature. Global exploration. Securing this date suggests that in the earliest known presence of Europeans in the Americas ahead of Christopher Columbus, as well as the earliest evidence in all of human migration and exploration that the Atlantic had been crossed, he said. Vikings also established a presence in Iceland and Greenland to the west before arriving at the Luanse Meadows site. It is thought that the Vikings ventured west to find new raw materials, most notably wood, he said. By traveling between the continents for such materials, it has been described as the first step in globalization. Related articles. Vikings weren't necessarily blonde or Scandinavian. Why everything you thought you knew about the Norsemen may go wrong? While the exact number of trips to the Americas or how long they stayed there is unclear, current evidence shows it was likely a short-lived stay for the Vikings. Current evidence. Bad short-lived stay. But there is evidence at the Luanse Meadows site to show that the Vikings explored areas south of Newfoundland while they were in the Americas. Previous attempts to understand when Vikings reached the Americas have been rooted in the Icelandic sagas, but these were once oral histories written down centuries after they actually occurred. The sagas are filled with fantastical notes, but they also point to potential encounters between Vikings and the indigenous people of the Americas. They also point to potential encounters between Vikings and the indigenous people of the Americas, American Indians. Some of these events were described as amiable and others violent. Amiable. This microscope image shows rings within a wood fragment from Luanse Meadows. When cross-checked with medieval texts, including a recently discovered one, it appears that other Europeans were aware Vikings had reached a new land across the Atlantic. Combining modern research techniques and the discovery of other texts could help establish a timeline for Vikings in the Americas as well as who else knew about it, he said. When cross-checked with medieval texts, including a recently discovered one, it appears that other Europeans were aware Vikings had reached a new land across the Atlantic. When cross-checked, retracing Viking tracks, but finding archaeological evidence to back up the stories in the sagas is much harder. This date acts as an anchor point for the Icelandic sagas, he said. It is somewhat in keeping with date estimates based on these sagas, and therefore adds some credibility to the stories they contain of exploration of the Americas and interaction with indigenous inhabitants. In other ways, it is later than most saga experts would have expected. Saga experts. This date acts as an anchor point for the Icelandic sagas, he said. It is somewhat in keeping with date estimates based on these sagas. In keeping with these date estimates. Therefore, adds some credibility to the stories they contain of exploration of the Americas and interaction with indigenous inhabitants. In other ways, it is later than most saga experts would have expected. Previously, researchers believed the Vikings were in the Americas by the late 1990s or early 1000s. WHO related articles. Diverse smallpox strains was widespread in the Viking Age, new study reveals. This either means the Vikings were there a little later in time, or they came and went over a longer time period, or they stayed at the site longer than the most would have expected, he said. Using cosmic ray events could help researchers study and date other historic sites thought to be Viking or medieval in origin, because there are at least two events that occurred during this period in 775 and 993. Researchers are also trying to trace other solar storms, and so far, they've confirmed another one that occurred in 660 BC. This aerial view shows reconstructed buildings near Luanse Meadows. Previously, this team has used this dating method on another historical site with an unknown age prior to exact year radiocarbon dating. Looking ahead, Dee and his colleagues want to delve deeper into the story of Norse exploration of the North exploration of the North Atlantic, he said. They are already applying their dating method to other chronological questions around the world. In time, it is hoped that such reaction will provide new and explanatory insights into the story of the human past, he said. Interesting. So those people were there around 1009. That's amazing. They used the carbon dating and solar storm print on the choice. So in keeping with the dates, experts' current evidence, much more than the indigenous people in the origin, in keeping with the dates, carbon dating, different origin. Those are expressions I can remember. What other expressions can you remember? No? Okay, let's go over and check out the expressions that we encountered. Vikings, longships, Norsemen, longships, crossed the study examined wooden artifacts, meadows, Luanse meadows, unlikely sources, two unlikely sources, landed on unlikely sources, Le answer all matters. Unlikely sources, unlikely sources, unlikely sources. Clear marker, noticeable. Global exploration. Greenland. Raw materials, unlikely sources. That's a good one. From they landed on two unlikely sources. Unlikely sources. Fantastical notes, fantastical notes, fantastical notes, fantastical notes. Cross-checked. When cross-checked with medieval texts, when cross-checked with medieval texts, when cross-checked with medieval texts, when cross-checked with medieval texts. Retracing Viking tracts. Longer period, stayed, short-lived stay. Short-lived stay. Yeah, short-lived stay. Looking ahead, D, Professor D. So that's it for today. Cross-checked. Let me go over the expressions I picked up from this material. Norse, Icelandic, fantastical, cross-checked, unlikely sources, trace, storm, X-ray. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.